Do you recognize them? Those people who only want to join you to position themselves for a promotion and who dump you after they lose interests? Or who ignore you out of the blue when it's clear you haven't got enough social status, success or money? Well, this fourth video will exactly deal with this. We'll be discussing 1 Corinthians 3 today. While addressing the church, Paul starts with a reproach. The Christians in Corinth might consider themselves to be very spiritual, but they actually are not. To Paul, they are worldly. They are insufficiently led by God and His Spirit. Their mindset is mainly focused on the world around them and not really on God's. The key question I would like to ask is, by whom are you led? It's good to read books written by theologians who have impacted the church in a major way, like Calvin, Luther, N.T. Wright, Tim Keller, etc. But pay attention. What they or others have written should not define your identity. We run the risk of blindly following people and their ideas without reflecting ourselves. Please don't ever place people on a pedestal by saying, "That brother has such an intimate fellowship with God. He's really the most accurate prophet. He's always right in everything he shares." Or, "Judging from her success, this sister must be right. I truly go for what she says. She's so awesome." It bothers Paul that there are people who connect in such a way to other people that he or she starts to say, "I'm of Apollos" or "I'm of Paul." Perhaps you don't identify yourself so quickly with other people. Nevertheless, this happens far more in another context than one would expect. Whether we like it or not, as human beings we are simply inclined to identify ourselves with a person or a group. Because what's the difference between "I'm of Apollos" and "I'm traditional"? Or what's the difference between "I'm of Paul" and "I'm Pentecostal"? Our identity and self-esteem should not be linked to the fact that we are traditional or Pentecostal, but should be connected with our faith in God. Let's now shortly go back to Paul's observation that the Corinthians were worldly. Paul is rather harsh. He labels them as mere infants in faith, people who aren't yet spiritually mature. What he's trying to say is this: if you're still looking up to people, if you're still placing people on a pedestal, if you're not looking at the deeper level regarding to who exactly does the actual work, namely the Holy Spirit, then you are focused in the wrong way. Then you are still a child, even a small child. Set against this reality, Paul introduces a new insight regarding the way God's church should really act. He presents two new concepts that explain our new identity. He describes us as fellow workers and as God's temple. First of all, the expression fellow workers. This may sound like us being God's staff. And thinking about this, the expression may look honorable. But this is not what it actually says. A better translation could be team member. God has chosen you to be working for His team. That's your new identity. And that's why Paul is trying to say, you're thinking too lowly of yourselves while using the statements "I'm of Apollos" or "I'm of Paul." According to Paul, we may call ourselves God's own team members, which is far more awesome. Secondly, the word temple. In Paul's days, the Greeks considered the temple to be the most important building of their city. When you arrived at the temple site, you had reached the heart of the city. In those days, the temple represented divine protection, the pride of the city, and the collective identity. To the Greeks it was both a tourist attraction and the building through which they would be blessed. Last but not least, it was the residence of the Godhead. So a temple was therefore more important than a palace. When Paul compares the Christians to temples, he expresses how very precious each individual really is. You are the glorious person destined to be the most beautiful the city has to offer. That's who you are, according to God. You are meant to be a blessing to your whole surroundings. And it's not just you, your brothers and sisters are a blessing too. Then, getting along with each other will get the highest priority. Looking up to other people or a strict cultural hierarchy in the church rather harm the enormous value God has awarded to each individual. Not just the pastor and the elders are called temples, but every born-again church member is a temple. Acknowledging this enormous appreciation of each individual will also result in a horizontal organization. We are all equal. After this truly great description of our new identity, we are given the commission to build with valuables, gold, silver and precious stones. These valuables refer to carefully managing everything given by God regarding power, gifts and opportunities. You will no longer build for your own glory, but for His glory. Please be aware of that. If you make a mess of it by using inferior stuff such as wood, hay and straw, God's mercy and grace will be there and they will pull you through, but only as through fire.